Righto, everyone. Hello, my name is Shannon O'Loughlin. I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I am your illustrious hostess and CEO and attorney for the Association on American Indian Affairs. Thank you for participating in our 7th annual repatriation conference. We are slowly winding down into our final day and hours of the conference and the amazing things we've been able to participate in over the last 3 weeks. I hope if you've missed anything that you go back to the schedule and you can have access to any of the panels you might have missed. Everything's been recorded. So please do that. There's nothing on Netflix anyway, so come back here and watch content you've missed. I'm really excited right now and so happy that we're being joined today by the Sicangu youth who worked towards repatriation of ancestors from the Carlisle Indian Industrial Boarding School. And so let's, without further ado, I want to turn it over to them. Alexis, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right.
And everyone's giving you some emojis. Let's get some more love and some claps going on there. Maybe some cool and good emojis. All right, it's all yours.
All right, thank you so much. Hami Dakiapi, Alexis White Hat Imachapi, Naha, Yuhan Chante Washte, Nape Chuzapi. Hello, my friends and relatives. I greet you all with a heartful handshake. My name is Alexis White Hat, and I've been a part of the Sicangu Youth Council for about 5 years now.
Madakiapi, Rachel Wambly, Ihakewi Macha Pixto. Naha, Yuhan Chante Washte, Nape Chuzapi. Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Janis. My Lakota name is Wambly Hakewi, which translates to last legal woman. And I greet you all with a heartfelt handshake.
Hi, everyone. My name is JaydenRose Whiting, and I come from the Spring Creek community on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. My Lakota name is Chante Washdewi, which translates to good-hearted woman. And sorry. And I was part of the youth council since 2015.
And today we will be presenting on basically just the journey of the repatriations that we've been working on for the past 6 years. We have a PowerPoint ready. It's mostly full of pictures, so we'll be able to talk from our own experiences. And so yeah, we'll just start off right now. Okay. Oh, I can't see. Yeah, there you go.
So I wanted the photo on the left. So originally, the Sicangu Youth Council members traveled to Washington, D.C. to attend a unity conference, and it was near the conference or near the trip where we had all decided to go to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, to tour the school. Previously, a lot of the Sicangu Youth Council members had little to no information or history of boarding schools, and it was this photo that so like we took this photo before we had before we were taken to go to the grave sites. And so, you see us like we look, I don't know, we don't look sad, but it was after this photo that was taken when we got to look at the graves and we got to like go through this whole awakening process of boarding schools and how it affects, how it affected our ancestors and how it affects us today. And the photo on the right, the photo on the right is of us going through a presentation of the school and the history of the school. Historian Barbara Landis was the one who presented brief overview, and she had covered what children what they learned there and not what they went through. And basically she kind of sugarcoated majority of what children that went to boarding schools had gone through. But later on down the road, during our repatriation movement, she helped us a lot to recover files and information of each child. And then our next slide.
Okay. So the picture on the left is when we got back from Carlisle in, did I say August?
Mm-hmm.
Of November, or yeah, August of 2015. We presented to our tribal council about our trip to Carlisle, and
it was at this tribal council meeting, one of our Sicangu Youth Council members, Sydney Horslooking, mentioned or asked a question that sparked the movement of the repatriation process, and that is, why haven't they come home yet? And after 142 years, or at this, then it was 36, and that got a lot of us thinking. We need to maybe this is something we thought would be a step toward healing, and so this photo on the left is something that is what sparked our movement. And the photo on the right, the bottom right, is of former director of Tribal Historic Preservation Office, Russell Eaglebear. He was giving us a brief discussing, what we're gonna have to prepare for the years to come, for the process of them coming home. And he taught us that patience is a virtue that we all need to have, especially during this time, because it was going to take years for them to come home. And so he told us to prepare, and add on to it. We'll move on with the next slide. So with the photo on the left, it was the meeting with the descendants of all of the children buried at Carlisle. And so that was just all of the families that the children came from. We gathered them all together at our tribal headquarters, in our tribal chambers, to really discuss about what they wanted to do, what we wanted to do, kind of get on the same level, and same, just to make sure we were on the same side of wanting to bring the kids home, which I'm pretty sure all of us wanted to bring the kids home. Yeah. And then on the bottom, Rachel can explain more. I wasn't able to attend the government-to-government consultation. Before I move on, the photo on the left is, I'm not sure if you could see the poster boards behind the members, but each poster board represents a child, and it has their name, their photo, and when they arrived and when they died, and just a brief overview of who they were. And we presented that to the people when we talked about our movement. The photo on the bottom, it's a government-to-government meeting we held in May of 2016 with the Department of Defense, and in attendance was the Itachas, or spiritual tribal leaders from the Northern Arapaho. And at this meeting, we talked about what we wanted to see moving forward in this process, and we wanted to hold the Department of Defense and the Army and the government accountable for what they did to Native people and Indigenous people, and what they tried to bury. And we held them accountable for the idea that they had these children buried at Carlisle as tourist attraction instead of an actual burial site or cemetery. And it was there at this photo that one of the tribal leaders from Northern Arapaho had mentioned that this was going to be that photo, that gathering was the first in a very long time that the allies of the Battle of the Little Bighorn had come together. And that, so this was a very historical moment for all of us.
The picture on the top left side is all of the Sicangu Youth Council members with the 9 chairs dedicated to each child. And also on the bottom left is also just like a picture of each chair dedicated to those 9 children that we brought home from Carlisle.
The photos on the left side were taken for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and from the moment of 2015, 2016, all the way up to 2021, they have been very supportive with our movement and have been involved. Like, they were, just checking in on our process and where we were at with the movement. And you'll see there's 10 chairs. We unfortunately weren't able to bring home the other one.
And then the photo on the right is from March 2017. It was a meeting that we had with Russell Eaglebear and Peter Gibbs, who were working at the Tribal Historical Preservation Office at the time. And this is where we found out, the Sicangu Youth Council found out that the children that were buried at Carlisle were moved 4 times while in the care of Carlisle at their school cemetery. And after this meeting, we ended up having a meeting with the military branch that is now at Carlisle. And when we were in that meeting, they pretty much denied all of the claims that we were making, but we had all of the proof to show that the kids were moved about 9 times, or the kids were moved about 4 times, excuse me.
And then the bottom or the left or the right photo, he's telling us that we're able to bring, that they told us we were able to bring them home in August of 2017. And, this photo was taken in March. So that's just an example of how many loopholes we had to go through. And the many no's, the many yes that turned into no's. We had to prepare ourselves, to get our hopes up and to, just to keep moving forward. I'm just
is one of our many meetings.
So the top photo, the top left, is of me and 2 other members presenting in Carlisle, South Dakota for the trauma or healing from trauma conference. And we talked about the 10 children that were buried, that we had found that were buried at Carlisle. And then we had talked about how that connects to historical trauma and how we are affected today, even, and then the bottom photo is of more members coming back months later to talk about, to present in front of Teach for America teachers about historical trauma and their repatriation efforts.
And these are only 2 conferences or presentations that we've done out of many. We were unfortunate enough and lucky that other people wanted to help spread the word about this, and we were invited to do other conferences. We were able to present other places. So it was really nice to feel that support in spreading the word and the awareness. And from now on, the slides from now on are pictures from the most recent, from July, whenever we made our final trip, or hopefully not our final trip. We still have some Sicangu youth still at Carlisle, but this was the trip where we were able to bring our 9 relatives home finally after 142 years. So we're kind of just gonna go off the pictures and just tell
like our own experiences and of the trip and just our feelings and all that. So the top left is of us pictured at Whetstone Agency or the Whetstone Landing, and that's it connects to the Minnesota or what is it? It's connected to the Missouri River, I believe, and Whetstone Landing is actually the last place that all of the children from Carlisle, it was the last place they got to see of their home before they were boarded up on boats and basically shipped off to Carlisle. So we felt that making our first stop there to kind of get the feel of like, this is their last stop, and I guess this is our last stop until we have them back here. So we, a member, one of our members sang a prayer song, and as we, we circled up and we said a prayer for the children and, the families that last saw their children before they left. And then the top right photo is of us on the grounds at Carlisle boarding school. We were on the barracks. And before entering, we all felt this heavy emotional, we all felt heavy and sad, and we felt like we couldn't go anymore. And so we all had to stop. We all had to stop and circle up and pray, for strength and guidance, because this was it's been a hard 6 years of getting no's, of getting pushback, but being there with the actual, being there knowing that you get to take those kids home I wasn't able to make the trip, but hearing everybody's stories and just being able to hear about how they felt and stuff, it was really emotional. It was very emotional. And during the duration of our stay in Carlisle, we've come across so many obstacles. We experienced what is it called? Someone who was being very racist toward us. And we knew that, okay, we've come this far and we can't just stop now. We can't just feel angry at this man for acting the way he did. And we knew that, we've come this far. We need to keep moving forward and to keep being, in this, to stay in prayer and to be strong. And then we've encountered almost, a hit. We almost were hit into, and so we went through many obstacles while we were in Carlisle, but we stayed in prayer. The bottom left photo is of us during the transfer ceremony. In front of the members is the children in cedar boxes, and they were put in red felt that was wrapped in buffalo hide, and we put white tobacco ties on the cedar boxes, and we're praying over them before they were transferred out. And we're wearing orange skirts because obviously orange is a national color for boarding schools. And
And the bottom right picture is of when, as you can see, the guy in the blue is Christopher Eaglebear, and he sang a prayer song as they were wheeling each children out to the trailer that they were being hauled in. And that part was very emotional for all of us. It's hard to explain the emotions of being there, but it took a different toll on all of us emotionally.
And I know during that transfer ceremony that they were able to get the support from all over Indian country. We had the Secretary of Interior, Deb Haaland, come and speak. We had Mark Ruffalo, the actor, come and speak. And I know it was very overwhelming that day with emotions of just wanting to get home, get these kids home, just wanting to get out of Carlisle and away from all of the negativity of the school and the lands and all of that. So the top left is of us with the Meskwaki Nation in Iowa. We were invited to have supper with them, and the community came together. They all brought something. Some brought potato salad, some brought like the meat, and it was just this huge get together. And when we were coming in, they had an escort for us, and for the children. And as we were coming into the town and going into the school, we had seen the entire community outside in orange, and they were some of them were crying, and some of them were just very. But we were welcomed with open arms, and they had speakers come and talk, and they thanked the Sicangu Youth Council members, and they thanked our chaperones for doing for helping us and doing what we did, and from that point forward, it was a caravan for the children until we made it on to the reservation to Sinte Gleshka University, where we held the services. So in the bottom left corner, with all of the motorcycles and stuff, that was our Sicangu Legion riders who came and led the entire caravan. And the support from all of Native country, Indian country, was overwhelming. It was beautiful. It was, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. It was beautiful. You could feel it. And even at the top right, the Ohio Casino in Yankton, and the Yankton Sioux tribe put this message out for us. And everywhere that we had to drive through, there was support coming. After we visited the Meskwaki Nation, we went to, Santee, and we were welcomed by their people as well. And they had offered us food and water, and just on our way home. And they prayed with us, and they cried with us, and they said, this is a victory for all Indian country. And so we had caravan all the way to Yankton, and their people on the bottom right. They also, had this gathering for us. And, the community came out, and they sang, they prayed, they cried with us, and they thanked us, and they sent us on our way. And this just shows that, stuff like this, it brings everyone together, and it brings nations together. It ties us stronger together. It's like, the way I saw it was, we're going back to how it was back in the day when we supported each other. We were there for each other. And it was just a really moving time.
And also when we first started back in 2015, we only had a handful of people that believed in us. And now, this 6 years later, we have a whole nation standing with us, and it's really overwhelming.
And we'll move on to the next. Sorry, we're like really emotional. When we started this movement, we were kids. We were teenagers, and we were just kids on a trip, a fun trip. And when we came home, we weren't just kids anymore. We were kids that had this something that we knew we needed to do, and we needed to do it now. And we didn't want to wait till we were 30. We didn't want to wait till we were older. We wanted to do it now. And so we came back and we were making all these plans, and we were told to do, you know, some people told us, you know, we were too young and that we needed to wait a little bit. But there was a good few who believed in us and supported us. And, you know, that's why we're very emotional, because it just, if we were to know what we know now, then, you know, just, I don't think, you know, any of us would have believed, you know, we would have been standing or having this, you know, it's just, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a long 6 years. Like Rachel said, we were teenagers, we were in high school, and now when we brought the kids back, some of those teenagers are parents, or mothers, fathers, and it's crazy to see how long the journey and process was. But in this slide, this is when we returned back to Whetstone with the children for the last time. They're never going to go back to that place. They don't need to go back there. We brought them in, and tribal members, tribal spiritual leaders had the area ready for the kids to come home. We had, I think it's seven council fires teepee set up for all of the kids to be put in. And from there on, we asked all of the descendants of those children to come and line up as we brought the kids back into that teepee, into the space. It was their last stop before they were home. And once we got the children in there, we had our Sicangu Youth Council members come in as well and sit behind the children while we had the descendants come and sit in front. And I'm actually I'm a descendant of one of the children that we brought home. So me and my family were there, and a really beautiful thing happened that day. The Ihanktoa, the Yankton Sioux tribe, they came, their women's society, they came and made spiritual food for us to feed those kids, to have a meal with our family members. And it was really beautiful. One thing I remember from that day is me and my mom were sitting there in front of our relative's box where he was sitting, and as those women were laying out all of the traditional spiritual foods down on the buffalo hide in front of us, my mom, and she said, "This just reminds me of I can just see those kids sitting in front of us, patiently waiting for that food." And that was really beautiful. And we had our spiritual leaders there. We had Chief Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear, who one of the kids is his descendant, or he's a descendant of one of the kids, Kola Hollowhorn Bear, who is also my relative. And we had Richard Movescamp from Kyle? From Momboli, South Dakota. And we had some more spiritual leaders from Rosebud. And it was just a really beautiful ceremony. And the picture in the middle on the bottom, those are the Sicangu Legion Riders who helped bring the kids in. They were there for they drove for 2 days. Yeah. It was really something to see, because they're all wearing orange, they were in their vests, they had their Sicangu flags, their Rosebud Sioux tribe flags blowing while they're driving. And we have a running club here on the reservation. It's the Sicangu Running Club. And the way they honored the kids was that they ran from Mission, South Dakota to Whetstone, South Dakota, which is about
2 hours.
It's about 2 hours away, so a little over 100 miles. They started that morning and they ran to Whetstone and ran back. And I remember driving to Whetstone that morning, and we passed the runners, and just the proud feeling came over, because it was like they're carrying a message saying they're coming home. Like they're telling the people that they're coming. Do you guys have anything to say? It was a really emotional time for both Rachel and Jayden. They were on a week-long trip, and I know by the time they came home, they were drained emotionally, mentally, physically. Yeah. And then this slide, this is when we got to the reservation, to the Sinte Gleshka University, their gym. And then, so how we had it set up for them, it was like funeral services. So we had a teepee set up in the middle, and on each side of the teepee, we had a table, and those chairs that we showed in the previous slide from 2016, those were the same chairs, the pictures, and we prepared ribbon skirts for the girls, ribbon shirts for the boys, each moccasins for each child, a bundle of tray cloths, I think it was sage, sweetgrass, bitterroot, and that day was a life-changing day. Is that true? Yeah, and in the bottom right, you have Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear and Sam High Crane bringing out Chief Hollowhorn Bear's shirt, because his nephew, his son, back in the day, Chief Hollowhorn Bear considered Kola, one of the kids that we brought back, his son. And so we brought his shirt out as well to kind of make a full circle, almost like a full circle, because Chief Hollowhorn Bear's shirt was returned back to our Tioshbe, the Ashke Gulipi Tioshbe, just this summer. So it was a beautiful moment to see that we had Chief Hollowhorn Bear's shirt, we had Kola Hollowhorn Bear back, and it just was like full circle. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things happened during those services. We had grandmothers come in and with traditional foods. We honored the runners, we honored the writers, we honored the Sicangu Youth Council for all of the work and they've put in, and there just was a lot happening that day, and my mind's going all over trying to pinpoint something. But something really a story that we heard from the spiritual leader, or from a spiritual leader in Richard Moof's camp. Rachel can tell the story. I can't really remember.
So this whole entire movement was led by the spirits. We went into ceremony 2015 and throughout the years to ask the spirits for guidance. And it was them who told us, we need to, they're going to come home. We're going to come home, but we need, be patient, And so, I feel like that's a lot of, where we got that patience from is from the spirits. We had to remind ourselves, like, all right, maybe not next year, the year after, and then the year after would come, maybe not, so and so on. But Richard Moose Camps, he was asked to come to Carlisle in June, before Sicangu Youth Council members had gone down to Carlisle in July. And it was there when he was outside the cemetery and he was sleeping in the car, or resting, taking a nap in the car. And he had heard a knock on the window. And he looked and he rolled down his window and there was a little girl that was standing there and asked, "When am I going to come home?" And so, he told us, when you go onto the grounds, you tell, you just say, like, "I'm sorry," or just don't give them false hope, but tell them, you want to, or, you're going to make, I don't know, like, just that will hopefully one day they'll be able to come home.
And throughout this whole movement, we've centered, or in the beginning, I forgot to mention this earlier too. When we showed the first photo of us pictured on the in front of Thorpe Hall, before we had went onto the grave sites. After we were leaving that day, fireflies had started coming up from the ground. After we had left, an offering for them, and we had said a prayer for them, we were leaving, and fireflies started coming up from the ground where the graves were, and they started like going all around us. And as we were getting in the van or the bus, there was a firefly that had come in through the window on my window, and me and my friend, we were playing with one, and it was going on our hand, walking all over our hand and our palms. And I started recording, and I said, hi, friend. Like, it's nice to see you, friend. And, as we were leaving, I said, see you, friend. We're going to have to go, and little did we know there was a child or Sicangu relative that was buried there named Friend Hollowhorn Bear. And that's her ancestor. She's descendant. So we've throughout the whole entire trip of us coming back to Carlisle the second time around, we've been seeing fireflies, and we've kind of taken at it, as a sign that they know we're here, and they know they're gonna come back. And when we were visiting the Mishkwaki Nation and on our way to Santee, we've seen fireflies in the field, and we've been seeing fireflies all around us the entire trip. And we've kind of taken that as, they're coming home with us, and it's, I don't know if you want to ask anything else, but
there was a Suburban in front of the car that was carrying the children, and then there was another van behind that one, and then another van. There was fireflies surrounded each vehicle, even on the way. And that was really overwhelming for all of us because they're finally coming home.
And that night after the services, my mom and I ended up leaving early just because we were exhausted. It was emotionally draining. We wanted to go home. And that night when we were leaving Sinte Gleshka University, it started raining, and there was a thunderstorm. And as we were driving, I couldn't help but think, like, those are happy tears coming from all of our ancestors and our relatives, because our relatives are finally home. Our children are home after 142 years. And I thought of the thunder, the wakias, the thunder beings, as that lightning and the thunder is, they're welcoming those kids back home. And there was just a lot of like symbolism during that time, like when we were coming onto the reservation, the way the sun was positioned and the clouds were positioned, the way the sun rays came down, it made like a teepee formation, and it was like we were driving into this teepee, getting ready to bring the kids home. And yeah. And I'm not sure, is there anything else? Yeah. And then we have 2 more slides. This one is the day of the burials of the kids. And I'll have Rachel and Jayden explain the first the 3 pictures.
The photo on the top left is the name of the cemetery where, how many are there?
6.
Where 6 of the 9 relatives we brought back are buried. And the photo on the top right is the day of the burial of the 6 children.
And the thing about during the burials, we had our women warriors, our women warriors come out and help with the burial, and it was really beautiful to see these women, these mothers, these caregivers, or these caretakers come and do this final thing for these kids to lay them to rest. And the reason why only 6 of them were buried over in the tribal veteran cemetery is because 3 of the other children were were buried in family cemeteries from the descendants. So before I start talking about that, we have in the very bottom left corner, Mary Randall. She was a Sicangu elder. She's 101 years old. She just passed recently. I think she was saying a Lakota prayer, or I can't really remember, but she was talking and she has a fistful of dirt, and she puts that dirt on each of the burial or on the graves. And the 2 bottom right pictures are from when my family and we held our own private services for Kola, for friend Hollowhorn Bear. And so my Uncle Dwayne, he set up his teepee, and in there we had a table on the left where it had all of the things that friend got when he came home, the moccasins, his ribbon shirt, a picture of him, just little items there. And then in the middle we had Kola laid out on I think it was a star quilt, and in front of him we had Chief Hollowhorn Bear's pipe laying in front of him, and the back of him we had Chief Hollowhorn Bear's shirt. And there we just we talked. My Uncle Dwayne, he explained where we would be burying friend, and we ended up burying him at our Sundance grounds here in St. Francis, South Dakota. And we put him a little back behind the Sundance grounds on this little ridge that looks over the Little White River and Crazy Horse Canyon. And it felt very fitting to put him there because it was like the reason why we wanted to put him there was because we didn't want to transfer him from one government cemetery to another government cemetery. Mm-hmm. And so just the idea of having him be on this ridge, looking over the river, looking over the trees, over the canyons, and being able to be truly free. Mm-hmm. And we decided not to put a marker down or anything because the way Dwayne explained it to us was that back in the day, our ancestors never really visited graves or where people were laid to rest. And so it was just for him. That's just for him. And now what we do next is we move on and we remember to honor them, but we continue to live our life. And in the bottom right corner, we have Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear and Richard Moves Camp, as well as family members of the Ashke Guipi Tioshpae. And we're getting ready to bury friend in that picture. And it was like a relief as soon as we buried him, because it was like, okay, you can go now. You can go on your journey. Like,
you're not stuck anymore.
You're not stuck at Carlisle. You're free. Like, you can be with your ancestors. And so it was a really beautiful moment. Do you guys have anything else?
No. Let's see. Yeah. So we asked. We let the descendants, have us, like where they wanted their ancestor buried at. And so 3 of our
children's families, they put them in their own, family graves and family, where they wanted them to go. So it was 5 years ago, and we decided to put them in White River, or the veteran cemetery, because when we were going through this process of the movement and what we wanted to do, we went through a loophole, or we went through this period of the Department of Army saying no, because you guys don't have a good part of land to put the children in. We have the land, we have the, and it almost seemed like, they were using them as a tourist attraction instead of just like them being laid to rest. And so the cemetery, the veteran cemetery, was a good, place, because, it was very well kept. But yeah, that's why they're buried there.
And then in this last slide, we have pictures and the information of. We have pictures for 7 of the children. 2 we were unable to find photos, and we'd like to thank Host Nick for the information and just putting these photos together, but
making them into posters.
And I think it's really beautiful to see the pictures of the kids with beautiful backgrounds, to kind of just, that's what they are. They're beautiful. Like, you don't want to see that past, or, it's hard. But yeah, we have Rose Longface, the Alvin Brave Rooster, Ernest White Thunder, Kola Hollowhorn Bear, Dennis Strikes First, Dora Brave Bull, Maud Swift Bear, Warren Painter, and Lucy Pretty Eagle.
And we were asked to present at the funeral when we brought them back, of each child, and when they arrived to Carlisle and when they died. And so I just want to talk about Ernest and Lucy. Ernest Knocks Off, or White Thunder, and Lucy Pretty Eagle. So I chose Lucy because there was literally no files of her at Carlisle besides her date of arrival and her death record, or her record of death when she died. And she was turned into a folklore, or folktale ghost story on the East Coast. And I feel like she had more than that. She deserved more than just a ghost story. She was she was a little girl. She deserved more. They all deserve better. So I talked about how, I talked about her and how I felt about, how she just was put into a story, and, that was it. And then Ernest, the reason I chose Ernest was because of his records. It said that he was a problematic child, and that he was disobedient, and he ran away, and, he just, he was just a very troubled child, or troubled teen. And in my opinion, I think personally, if you don't want to be somewhere, obviously you're going to run away. And he had tried to run away. And in his death record, it says that he died with his friend Maud Swift Bear, and they both died the same day. But it doesn't say, or I think it was pneumonia or something. He was sick, but they both died the same day. And he had refused medical care, and so General Richard Pratt, he sent the letter to the family of White Thunder and Maud Swift Bear, and said that Ernest, his death was his own fault. And I like to think, he didn't want the care because he wasn't used to the Western, medical, the new world of how they did their, medical, or their medicine. And we as Native people, we rely on the plant nation to help us for medicine and for nutrients. And maybe he was used to that. He didn't want to be given, why get medical care from someone who doesn't want the best, who don't have the best interest in you, who mistreat you. And so you know, I don't think he was a troubled child. I don't think he was, you know, disobedient. I just think he wanted to come home and he missed home. And the families of these children, I know White Thunder, his dad, sent a letter to General Pratt and asked for their child to come home, even although they knew, you know, like they were gone. Asked them to come home so that they can be buried here, and it took 142 years for that to happen.
And if you notice, if you look at their ages, they're not too far off from the ages that we started this. Mm-hmm. You know, Kola was 17 when he first went to Carlisle, or in that picture he's 17, and he was only there for I think about 3 years before he passed away.
And then Lucy Predigal was only there for 3 months before she passed away. And you know, that says a lot. Like, there's so much that hasn't been that we didn't receive. You know, I feel like there was so much mistreatment. And you know, how would one girl, you know, like, you know, she's one of many Native children who had went to boarding school and, you know, passed away short months after arriving. You know, there had to have been something that had happened to them. And it makes me so mad that, like, we won't ever get that closure. You know, we won't ever get, you know, what happened to them before they had, you know, moments before they had passed. But
we did get the closure of being able to bring them home,
which
they never had the opportunity to do. So,
or nor have their families have been able to see them physically come home.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And then one thing I forgot to add to the slide before this was when we were at the Veteran Cemetery the day of the funeral. Before we started the funeral services out there, the Sicangu Youth Council all gathered in a circle, and we prayed and we talked about how our feelings were. And after we prayed together, we all came for a group hug. And one of the chaperones told us our work isn't done, because it's not done. Mm-hmm. We still have more relatives that are going to come home. Mm-hmm. So we will go back in the future for those relatives.
And going off what JaydenRose said, yeah, our work isn't done. And during our transfer ceremony, when Deb Holland was speaking, and, you know, she had talked about her work for the like to bring these children home, I had asked, you know, throughout these years, we wanted information from BIA to come out with files, because they also helped take our children, you know, to boarding schools. And so we asked, you know, throughout the years for files for anything, you know, that had led to these children being buried there, because we knew they were there. Together, there's at least 14, at least 4 or 5 children that are still buried in Carlisle, but they're in unknown graves. And so I told Deb, you know, like, we need to hold BIA accountable, not just for what they did then, but what they're doing now, because we would have went through a lot easier process of bringing them home if they had helped us. And they had told us, you know, they didn't know where the files went, and they, you know, like, they wish us the best. And so she said, you know, she'll get on that, and, like, she'll help us as much as she can. And so, you know, our work isn't done, and we hope to come back to Carlisle to get them, and not only Carlisle, but all across the North America, to retrieve our children that were taken.
And also, when we returned from Carlisle, after everything was done with, I found out one of my great grandmas, Lulu Bridgman, was a survivor of Carlisle Indian School. So I kind of feel that connection, that I was shocked to hear one of my relatives was a survivor of Carlisle.
Last page. Mm-hmm. And from here on, I think that's everything. It was a long 6 years, a lot of different things happening, just so much. So,
sorry. Sorry. The point of this movement in 2015 we were children, and we figured out that boarding school was a almost like one of the stems of historical trauma of what we feel today. And so we tackled it. We tried to fight. We tried to understand boarding schools and the mistreatment of our Native children. And there was a question that was asked during our process when we were coming back. One of the interviewers had asked, what do you think healing is? And for me, healing, it isn't linear. There's some days where you feel like, okay, I got it. I understand what trauma is, and I know that I have to heal it. I know I have to find ways to heal it. And this was another example. Abuse stems from being mistreated at boarding schools, and healing itself is very it's not sunshine and rainbows. And as kids, we're learning, and each time we find something out, it hurts. And so it was just a huge awakening for all of us to know that, okay, I'm trying to break a cycle that I don't know how it started. This cycle of never, it felt like it was just trauma of alcohol or addiction, and finding out that maybe this this stems from it, and the loss of connection, loss of connection to our culture, our language, our way of life. Personally, I wasn't able to learn the language as much as I should have or could have. My grandparents were fluent. My great grandma was fluent, and she banned us from learning the language because she was afraid that that what happened at boarding schools was going to happen again. And she gatekept what she knew to my grandpa. And so it hurt me knowing that that as an old lady, she doesn't have to be in boarding schools no more, but she held on to that trauma, and it affected us as a family. And so that is why it was very important for me to know to do this movement, and to know that they're home now, and that for me this is a step toward healing. And so the journey isn't done. We have a lot to go and many years to go. And we hope that you guys support us.
This isn't going to be the last time you'll hear of the Sicangu Youth Council. So we hope to continue to always have your guys' support, and just, I don't know. It's a lot.
And we're, us as a youth group, young adults, we're all still mourning. And it's going to be hard for us, I think. For me, I'm still mourning bringing them home. But it's like these girls said, it's been a long 6 years for all of us.
Mm-hmm. But overall, I'm very happy that they're home now. I'm very happy that, hopefully, I know they're with their families, on the other side, and that they're happy. And they've mentioned it, they talked about it, ceremony, that they're happy now. And so that gives me so much great comfort knowing, what we did helped them.
And I hope one thing I hope is that we were able to show and kind of pave the way for other youth from other tribes to make the effort to do that, to take that step. It's hard. You feel like you're alone. You feel like you have no support, but in the end, it's really worth it. You get to bring those kids home. You get to have, I guess, that sense of relief of thinking, okay, we brought them home. They're okay. They're at peace. They're with their families. And so I just really hope that this kind of kicks off a movement of just other youth coming together and bringing their kids home.
And to anyone, or I'm not sure if there's any other youth that are watching this, but I hope that this inspires youth to do what, to do this or to do something that like involves, healing. And, because we've had our fair share of, people who didn't believe in us, people who told us we were too young. And the fact that this happened years later and we're adults and we're taken serious now, like just believe in your youth, listen to the youth because they are the future leaders. Whether they're, it may not seem like it now, but, 5 years from now, they're going to be something.
And I know we have about a half an hour left, but we can start taking like questions.
If anyone has questions, we could use the rest of 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to bring up some questions that have been asked in our Q of A. And first of all, I want to pause and give everyone a chance to take a breath because your bravery and courage in this work is so important. And we're so grateful for you and other youth and adults around you that are supporting these efforts. It's so important to our health and healing. So if you want to take down your PowerPoint, you can. You don't have to, but I'll bring up some of the questions that are being asked here. Let's see. We're going to show it on stage. First question's from Lauren. And she's asking, why wasn't the 10th child returned? Will this happen in the future? What can we do to help support and bring them all home?
So the 10th child wasn't brought home because, so we went through, like I said, we went through many loopholes with the children buried there. And one of them was they couldn't find the child. They couldn't find the remains of the 10th child. And altogether, there might have been 15, 14 altogether. So there's 5 that are still somewhere on the grounds. But like Lexi said, they were buried and reburied 4 or 5 times. And so it's very hard to know like where exactly they are. And so that's why the 10th child couldn't come home.
Yeah, and like when we were told that they were moved that many times, we were told that some of the graves didn't have anything. Mm-hmm. It was a tombstone. It was just a marker, or some graves had a little, like almost different bones, so you had different people kind of being mixed together, and just I don't know. It was really disheartening to hear that, because then you had the I think it was the Department of Arms or Defense. You had them saying like we weren't able to be, that we didn't have the resources to take care of them, when in reality they were the ones that weren't taking care of them.
Mm-hmm. And there was some unknown graves, there's a lot of unknown graves that don't have the names. It just says unknown. And so we're hoping that the 10th child is in one of those. But also it's also a lot of, I guess it's a lot of like work to like dig them up and look at them. And so yeah, we've come through a lot of loopholes. And when we were going, prior to leaving to Carlisle the second time to retrieve the bodies, we were told that Dora wouldn't be able to come home. And then somehow, they found her remains, and we were able to bring her home. So yeah, we went through a lot of loopholes and a lot of not knowing where the bodies were and where they were buried at, and if they were buried in the cemetery or somewhere else where a building is above them, or concrete is above them. So yeah.
Here is another question, similar, but the question is, was the 10th child previously asked about, was that Amos Lefram Boyce?
So I remember when I was looking on the list of the children that were, this was in 2016. I had gotten a list of the names, and Amos Leframboy was one of the names on the list that we were supposed to be that we were researching, and that was supposed to be coming home. Mm-hmm. So yeah, altogether there's 5, but we just didn't know where the remains were. So I remember seeing his name on the list. I'm not sure if he is the 10th one.
This is from Lisa. So proud of you ladies. I cut my hair in ceremony that year for the kids that never got their ceremony. My great-grandfather was imprisoned there. So that's a comment more than a question.
I think that's
Thank you, Lisa.
really nice. Because, you know, our hair is our medicine. It's our our hair is our medicine, and whenever you lose someone or you're mourning or you're grieving, that's something that you do is you cut your hair to kind of cut off that connections. And it's to me, I kind of interpret it as this is a new beginning. This is a new chapter.
Absolutely. Let's see. Has this process helped to ease your experience of intergenerational trauma, and if so, in what way?
So it helped ease my the way I felt inside and about the world around me a lot. You know, I lived as a teen I lived in so much anger. Like, I was so angry at the world around me. I was so angry at being Native. Like, I didn't want to be Native. Like, I didn't like the color of my skin. I wanted to be something different so that I wouldn't be looked at as a target. Like, and I hated I lived in so much hate that, like, it makes me so much, like, it makes me sad because I didn't know, like, what trauma was and how it's, just, and uncovering, all of that. It helped me understand, and I was able to talk, we all have an inner child. We all have something, we all need to work on. And so it helped me just kind of like, all right, this isn't your fault why you feel like that. And it's not your parents' fault. They were taught this, and, it just stuff like that. And, like, when you uncover that, it's hard, but I want to, break the cycle. I want to tell my kids, what, like, I want to start a whole new, generation of, like, you don't have, like, obviously it's in our DNA, like, trauma, it, stems, like, it goes, it's passed down, but so is resilience, and so is, strength. And I want to teach my children that, this is where we are, be proud of who you are, be proud of your skin color, be proud of who you, just don't be afraid. And to never be, like, just to, if you believe in something, keep doing it. And so now, I don't know, like, I don't have any anger, I don't have any hate toward, who I am, because, at one point we were, Natives against, the government. And to think, the Great Sioux Nation or the Dakota, we were the last to surrender. So we were very powerful people, very resilient people, and we come from come from a strong lineage of Lakota people. So
yeah, like Rachel said, it's taught me that, breaking cycles is the way to kind of, and not put an end to intergenerational trauma, because like Rachel said, it's in our DNA, it's passed down, but we can start to put almost like just start to slow it down. You know what I mean? And, like, I remember when I was little and my grandpa was talking about just how before, when he was in boarding schools, he had no interest in the culture and language and nothing, but it wasn't until he had a vision where everything made sense. And I guess you can kind of see this as, or see, like, I don't know, once I started learning more about Carlisle and then finding out that Kola was my relative, it just all made sense of, like, it was like a release of anger and hatred, and it started making me want to get more involved in learning the language and learning my ceremonies, learning the songs. And now, like,
I just want to fully immerse myself. But because of boarding schools at the same time, they had the saying, kill the Indian, save the man. So I don't know. I feel like the healing with your journey of healing with intergenerational trauma is different for everyone, and it's a hard journey, but in the end, it's just all worth it.
And like, you know, healing isn't, like I said, healing isn't linear, where one day, you know, you feel good, you know, and then, you know, no bad days. There are bad days, you know, there's some days where you feel like, you know, like for me personally, you know, when I think about, you know, what happened then, I want to go back to, you know, my great grandma's no longer here, but when she was here, she gatekept the language, she gatekept the culture, and she you know, kind of was like a little abusive to my, you know, like she didn't like us speaking the language, and you know, I barely knew any, you know, I can't really say a sentence in Lakota, but I did say, you know, grandma in Lakota, and she was so mad at me. And so there's days where I wake up and I'm thinking, you know, okay, well, if she was alive, you know, what would she do if she had found out that I was doing this, or that I was saying, you know, speaking the language? And so I do feel very, you know, like, I feel very like sad, and knowing that, you know, like that's how badly our people were treated, and how badly it affected them into adulthood, and how that, you know, just knowing that I wasn't able to fully speak the language around her, you know, I just wanted, you know, I always wonder, you know, how it would be like to, you know, I don't know, I just feel very, I don't know, kind of sometimes lost. But then there are days where I feel very, you know, happy that I was able to understand this and know that you know, it wasn't her fault. And you know, I just feel very sad for her and for many of the survivors who had to go through boarding schools.
Well, and it's truly my belief that our grandmothers and grandfathers that went through that experience, though they came out of it suffering and oftentimes putting those restrictions on their own children and grandchildren, that they're free of all that today, right? And I bet anything, or that's how I look at those people in my family that went through boarding schools, is they're the ones helping us now bring them home. So you better believe your grandmother is loving and supporting you every day. And this goes to, I think this is a good question, is how are you all supporting one another through this work?
We use a lot of humor to cope with with everything that we go through. Most of the time it's a lot of laughs and just
like jokes.
But whenever it's tough times, we lean on each other.
We have so we have a group chat. We normally don't go on it, but usually when we do feel like, you know, there's something that we need to do, we'll come together and we'll talk, and then we'll, you know, just plan something. You know, we'll plan a meeting where we want to say, okay, let's start this youth group back up. We need something. And so, you know, normally it's always humor. We're always laughing with each other. And I feel like when you're during hard times, laughter is the best thing, you know, the best medicine. Mm-hmm. And, but when we do get very, you know, down, and, you know, we do lean on each other, and we ask, you know, like, hey, let's come together, let's hang out, you know, let's, we're thankful that we have mentors like Vicky Eaglebear, who was a huge help in this movement, Marcita Eaglebear, who is a mother and I think wife of Russell Eaglebear, and Jessica Tueagle, and, you know, just to name a few. They were very helpful, and they helped, you know, get us together, and, you know, put us in like have a talking circle with us, and, you know, just to share how we feel, and, you know, like just what we're going through in today, or, you know, the week or the day, and, you know, just to ground us. And so that's how we
we help each other out, we lean on each other, and we make jokes and yeah.
So I'm going to bring someone to join us here. Shell has a question that she'd like to ask. So here she comes.
Lucio, I was taking notes because I actually have a couple questions for you. First off, I put it in the comments. Do you guys have, there's an article, I want to make sure you guys have, Lucy Pretty Eagle's dad have put into a newspaper. Do you have that? Because I want to get it to you if you don't.
No, wait.
It was an article about, it was very, it's a little difficult to read because it's like he sent her to the school because she had, what I could tell from it was that she had a seizure disorder. And did you get that? Do you have it?
I believe her dad had, well, I don't have it, but I remember reading an article about it, and he had talked about, I think that when she arrived to the school, or like she was like had passed away but had come back to life and then went to the school. So
if you guys want that, I have it. I should tell you, I'm with the Circle Legacy Center and the American Indian Society of DC, and we're the ones that take care of the graves over at Carlisle. We live near it. And so if you need anything, like that was the one thing that I wanted to pull out of this. I felt like we didn't do enough for you. A couple of times I heard you talking about having to deal with racism, having to deal with people just sleeping in vehicles and stuff. I don't want that to happen in the future. So if you guys can stay in touch with us, please do. Because like my house is your house. If you want to stay here, my house is your house. We will take you wherever you need to go and get you access whatever you need. And we need to be feeding you and making sure you're taken care of. So that needed to be said. And I also have a lot of documents that I've been working in those archives since 1994. Like they are yours. If you need something, you ask for it, please. And I wanted to let you know, I believe Ernest Knoxoff, I believe that he did choose to die. I believe he was protesting. He died of diphtheria. And he did refuse food. Basically, in modern terms, when I'm working with my Irish communities, they consider him to be a hero because they feel that he used something that's very common over in Ireland, using hunger strikes. And I wanted to let you know that he is known in Ireland too by the Irish community because he's seen as being a hero. And I'm not kidding. Please stay in touch with me because we need to make sure when you guys come back, you're taken care of. Okay. My daughter actually raises money to help youth come out here. And there's no reason why you shouldn't be surrounded by our intertribal community. So wado and hugs, big hugs. You guys did great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shell, for sharing that. This is hard to moderate. Okay, here we go. I think there's still a question or so in our Q&A. Here we go. Did you get any oral histories from the living relatives to help document their lives or what they remembered hearing about from them being sent to school?
So we had to my knowledge, we had a videographer, but I'm not sure if he had recorded the stories. So I mean, that is a good idea. I mean, I feel like, but also it is a touchy subject, you know, like, I'm not sure if an elder who tried to like push it aside, you know, like what they went through to talk about it. But I mean, again, it is probably a huge, like, you know, maybe they do want to talk about it. Like, so, I mean, that is a good idea. And I feel like we should have done that. If we hadn't already, I mean, they had Sicangu Youth Council, the chaperones or the mentors had hired a videographer to do the recordings of the movement and, you know, throughout the years and, you know, like going to the trip and coming back. And so I'm not sure if they had interviewed any elders. So
important. Well, we're getting close to time. I wanted to let you know that one of our board of directors members, Sandy Whitehawk, let us know when these things were happening. And I know the Association on American Indian Affairs, the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition, and others donated some funding to help support the trip and the repatriation. And I want you to share, if there's still a need financially to support efforts going on, to let us know. And if there's a place where we can send that to let us know how we can best help you. And I really appreciate Shell for opening up her home. What can we do to help you continue?
As of now, I don't think we've really discussed of getting support financially. It's been usually just been like spreading, just having people spread the awareness of the movement. But we are still working towards research on boarding schools, on Sicangu, kids that may be still at those schools in their cemeteries. So we'll definitely get together and come up with a plan. That's for just in case. But yeah, as of now, we haven't really thought of taking support financially. Again, we're kind of an adult. We're adults now, so we like a lot of us are mothers. A lot of us, have. So like we haven't got together to to talk about what we're gonna do moving forward, fully. Just like where we want to go, what direction. Just like, but I was wondering, if we can get if maybe after this we could get the information and contacts for you, both of you.
Absolutely. Definitely. And please keep in contact with us. We can also reach out to the wonderful participants from our repatriation conference and our other lists and let them know what's going on and where help is needed and how to best support this movement. I know that the tribal consultations, I think, are ongoing, including right now, this very minute, on the boarding school investigation that Secretary Deb Haaland has instituted and is working on a final report that's due in April about the federal government's involvement in boarding schools. And the association is working on efforts that will support easy and unburdensome repatriation of children back home versus how the Army wants to do things. So we do hope that some wonderful momentum and work can be done with our ancestors pushing us forward. Is there anything in closing that you all would like to say before we end?
Well, one way that you guys can still kind of keep like a lookout for us and what we'll be doing next is we have a Facebook page. It's Tokala Inajinyo Suicide Prevention Program, and that's really where we keep people updated on what we're doing. But for closing remarks, I would just like to thank you and thank the I'm sorry, I forgot, it was the Association of American Indian
Association on American Indian Affairs. That's
yes. Fine. I would like to thank you guys for giving us this platform, and I would like to thank all of the attendees for listening to us,
for reacting.
It gave us a lot of comfort being able to see that.
Yeah.
And I just hope the rest of you, or I hope all of you, have a wonderful day and continue to support other Native peoples and bringing back their relatives.
Just like thank you guys for all the support. It's been, like I said, we're gonna keep saying this. It's been an emotional 6 years.
A roller coaster.
Yes, it's been a lot emotionally for everyone. And like we said, we are gonna keep saying this. Our work is not done.
Mm-hmm.
And just thank you, the whole nation, to everybody watching, for the support and love. We can feel the love through the computer.
We can feel the love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those emojis work. Well, wonderful. We thank you again for all the work that you do and continue to do. We're with you, and to everyone, thank you. We'll get you contact information, and we'll move forward together. Thanks so much, and we're going to end the session here.
Thank you.
Everything